Talking about Scrum and Kanban. I'm going to share my screen there. And it should be coming through now. If I do this right, I get to see everyone as well. There's a chance I might get that right.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Did you want to start a recording or are you already doing it?
I already did it.
You're already over that. Fantastic. I actually had to put the little caveat in the bottom corner there because I did put this on Twitter before I did my very first iteration of this presentation for Global Scrum Gathering a couple of years ago. And someone said, where can I get the book? I was like, no, the book doesn't exist, and it never, ever, ever will. So what I really wanted to do was talk about how Kanban and Scrum aren't enemies, how they are both complementary to each other, and how they can work together to help you do your thing better. So why am I here? Good question. Well, I did that because I had too much time on my hands a few years ago, but I'm passionate about helping organizations transform. No, I'm here about the people. That's why I'm here. The rest of it is why I can get to improve the working lives of people within the organization, because that's what is important to me. I want to help people have a better time at work because, hey, we spend enough time doing this thing. And I think Agile and Kanban and Scrum can do that for us. That's why I'm a Kanban university trainer, but I'm also a professional Scrum trainer. So I believe in these two things passionately. I also do some work with IC Agile as well, so I've got Agile covered too. I have lots of badges. Moving on. That's not important. The badges get me in front of people. That's what's important. So I want to make sure you're taking brave pills. There's only a couple of interactive points because I did this on Mentimeter, and it turns out Mentimeter only lets you have 2 questions after the first month. Otherwise, you've got to pay a fortune. So I'm going to have to skip some bits and do the 2 most important questions. So there are some small interactions. Most of it's me talking, though. I apologize. So breaking some things. What do I mean? Well, I just want to start with that because I think it's an addition that should be somewhere like a Scrum Guide. It's not in the Scrum Guide, but this is what Scrum's about, right? The done increment. If you had to distill it down to something, it's getting increments of stuff done. If it's not done, it's not really part of the increment. That's what the definition of done really means anyway. So let's get stuff done and get feedback. That's what Scrum's about. And why Scrum? Scrum's great for team-based product delivery. I think we've seen that in lots of places. Where it struggles is when you try and take a large multinational organization that's been doing their thing for a lot of years, and now they want to use Scrum. But they don't want to use Scrum for an end-to-end process like Scrum's designed for. They want to use Scrum for this little team that we already have somewhere in the middle of the organization. So if you imagine an end-to-end service, the middle team are going to use Scrum. And this team here is going to use Scrum. And how is that going to work out for us? So they're really trying to use Scrum out of the context of where Scrum is really designed to be used. I just want to say this. Bigger isn't always better. I used to work in a video games company, one of the biggest in the world. And they had game teams of maybe 130 people doing stuff. And every single one of them wanted to work on a game team of like 5 or 6 people doing stuff because they knew they'd have much more fun and get more stuff done and have more autonomy about what they were doing and how they were doing it on that kind of project. That's why a lot of them really like working on mobile games because you can have a small team doing stuff and just get things done. But in this context, England is a fairly big country. We have 56 million people roughly in England alone. New Zealand is a fairly small country. It only has 5 million. Those that have met me know what the next point is, and it's not about COVID. It's about rugby. How come the country that invented rugby union, with 56 million players, therefore a much bigger talent base, has lost to New Zealand 33 times when they've only got 5 million people? It's less than Wales, by the way. New Zealand is a smaller country by population than Wales, yet they are always the top team in world rugby. What's that about? How did they do that? It's not a one-off. It's not a freak. It's not, hey, they did well this year, didn't they? It's always, there's something going on there. A group of great individuals doesn't magically make a great team. I think if you've worked with teams, you've seen that. If you've got a group of individuals that do really well as individuals, they're the best at their thing, put them together as a team, and magically you've got the best team in the organization. Yeah, not so much. That's why Manchester City didn't win the Premier League last year, or they won the year before. But you know what I mean? They don't win every year. There's virtually no players that Manchester City have that wouldn't take the place of virtually any other player in any other team. One or two teams in Europe, notwithstanding one or two players. They have some of the top money, therefore the top players in the world, but they don't always win. What's that about? They should do, right? On paper they win, just not on grass. It's the same in the workplace. If we put together a team of the varsity, the best players, the best team workers, are we going to get the best team? Not if we don't work on it, on being a good team. Similarly, if we get a great group of teams, the best teams in the organization don't make the best end-to-end value flow or service delivery. They are focused on winning their own games. Just like individuals that are motivated individually don't play well as a team, individual teams that don't think end-to-end like the customer thinks about our services, they don't magically make a great end-to-end service. This is what Scrum was designed for. Customer has a need, Scrum team does the thing, and we get a done product increment. Happiness pervades. That's wonderful. If you're a new startup and you're starting up with Scrum, that's probably what you're doing. If you talk to, like the likes of Spotify, that's how they use Scrum. They have a team that works end to end, and they control the whole thing from soup to nuts. They do DevOps and design thinking up front and everything. Everything's all in that one team to it's live. Awesome. That's what Scrum's designed for. Unfortunately, it's just not how most organizations happen to be organized, and changing the way they're organized is often very difficult. If you've been an agile coach anyway, you'll have seen that. So what are my sequential team value flow? This is probably the situation in most large organizations. It's not a mistake that Scrum Team 1 appears twice. They have a dependency out to Team 2, which goes to another team which don't do Scrum. Obviously, they do ice hockey. And then back to them, off to another team that seems to do basketball, off to that NFL team. And eventually, hopefully, we get a done product increment. I did some work with a large bank, one of the large big four banks, if you want to put it that way in the UK. And the team I was sitting next to, two of them managed to deploy a new feature. They developed and tested a feature to replace a broken debit card. It took them less than 2 days for two people to do that work. And it went through the process, and as sure as eggs, it went live 18 months later. It's 18 months end to end, whether it's a big thing or a small thing. It just takes 18 months to get stuff live. Where's the feedback? Did they deliver the right feature? What do the customers think about it? Well, the people who did the work probably left by the time it gets live. This isn't goodness. This is badness. This is sadness going through the organization. So this is the situation many of us are in. Okay, take a deep breath. It's fine. We start with what we do now and we evolve. So let's put it back together again. I'm going to get you on Mentimeter. If you have a browser open or an application with Menti on it, we're going to Mentimeter, people. So go to Menti. Go to menti.com, and there is the code 7178346. This is why I hit Alt-Tab and try and get my browser open. It's hiding behind Zoom, and Zoom doesn't want to give way. There we go. So I am going to stop sharing that. Hi, everyone, back again. And I'm going to start sharing this. No, I have to share on that. Sorry, it's been a long day. I've been training a class all day, so I'm not quite at my mental best. Hopefully, if you went to Mentimeter, that's what you're seeing. What's Scrum for? If you start entering stuff and hit enter, then your answers will appear on this screen. Reduce complexity, deliver a done artifact that makes the customer happy, incremental delivery and quick feedback to customers, delivering value in the team, managing work. Interesting, managing work. Incremental change with frequent customer feedback, collaboration, continuous improvement. Interesting. uncertainty, getting things done without much of complexity. Okay. Let's see if I can scroll some more. Oh no, it's gonna. Framework to help delivering working software for the customer. Framework's interesting. I saw something about Wales. It disappeared on me. To get Wales to win the Six Nations. Yeah, that's what Scrum's for. Only if Adam Jones has got his way. Adam Jones is a fine Welsh prop forward. Scrummy expert. Okay. I don't think I've seen the official definition yet. That's interesting. Shall we move on? 17 of you have given me good answers for Scrum. What about Kanban? See, continuous delivery. Optimize flow. Flow and value delivery. Flow. Did somebody say flow yet? I'm not sure we've talked about flow enough. You just want to hear me say flow in my northeastern accent, don't you? Flow. Manage flow. Okay, less answers, but that's good. Frequent releases, mature teams. Mature teams, interesting. Flow of small product delivery in a clear sequence. Visualizing the end-to-end flow and making incremental improvements. I've not seen the typical answer that I see in most organizations yet. It must just be me, but I thought from what I've seen in organizations, Kanban was for when we want to do Scrum, but it's too hard, so we cut off the bits and call it Kanban. Is that just me? Okay, no, this is proper Kanban. This is almost like people know what they're talking about in this group. That's awesome. Flow of small product delivery in a clear sequence. Yeah, sequence has got something to do with it. Visualizing end-to-end flow and making incremental improvements. Yeah. Limiting work in progress, WIP, or work in process if you prefer. It doesn't really matter which one you say. But limiting WIP. I've spent a whole day saying you should limit your WIP to a bunch of people doing a team Kanban practitioner class. Because limiting WIP is the bit that's hardest to get, but the biggest value. Okay. I'm going to stop that share and go back to my other share. It really annoys me that Zoom has share at the top, then share at the bottom, then share at the top. Right. Oop, no, I have to be on that window. Scrum Guide says, Scrum is a framework for developing, delivering, and sustaining complex products. All of that matters. The Scrum Guide has been very well defined. I know there's a new version coming out later in the year. Both Ken and Jeff have talked about that now. But, you know, it's 21 years of effort getting the Scrum Guide to where it is. It's been honed down and worked and worked. So every word matters. Framework, not method. It's for developing, delivering, and sustaining complex products. Not any product. You can't use Scrum for anything you like. It turns out Scrum's only good for complex work, for complex product delivery and sustaining that product. If you're trying to use Scrum on something that's only complicated, I say only, it's not really belittling it, but there's work that is complicated and there's work that's complex. Complex is what we use Scrum for. What do I mean by a framework? These are two pictures of the same car as defined by Rolls-Royce. When Rolls-Royce pulled out the Silver Ghost Alpine, what came out of the factory looked very similar to the skeleton version there. It is the framework of a car. The only additions we've got are things like luxuries that are seats being added to that framework, because when it came out of the factory, it wouldn't have had seats. It had all of the mechanical components that the car needed. It's got steering, suspension, brakes, propulsion, and controls. It just didn't need any of those extra bits that the customers like seats and doors and windows and stuff. You'd take that framework of a car and then you would take it to your family's favorite coach builder, you know, the people who make all your nicest horses and carriages for your horses. And they would add to that and build the body of the car for you. So Rolls-Royce didn't make you a car. They made you the framework of a car, then you added to it, and now you've got a car. The important thing is add, not select the bits you like. If you take the steering off, the car's not going to work. If you take one of the wheels off, you're going to have a bit of a problem. The brakes are important, and so is the propulsion. All of the bits that are there matter. Please add bits on top. There's a whole part of the Scrum Guide called the end note, which says this document clearly outlines what Scrum is. It is possible to use bits of it in isolation from each other, but don't call, and you may get some benefit from it as well, but please don't call what you do Scrum, because you have to do all of it to be doing Scrum. So it's all of it, then you add your own bits. Like, I don't know, definition of done. They don't tell you what the definition of done should be. They say you should probably have one, and that, it's a good complementary practice. And here are some ideas of what things you might think about, but it doesn't say what it is. You have to work that out for yourself based on your context. You might need to have a working agreement, how the team's actually going to work, so that those top players work for the benefit of each other and the team overall, rather than just ourselves. A strategy for deployment, all of those things. I'm not just going to read them all out because that'd be dull. But yeah, you need to add stuff like doors, windows, and seats, and luggage racks and windscreens. Some of them are really important if you're going to pass your MOT, which is what you need. Sorry, I remember we've got people from other countries. The MOT test is what you need to do to be allowed to drive the car on the roads in Britain. You have to do it every year for cars more than 3 years old. It's not a checklist. That's just some things. But what you need to add will depend on what you do, where you do it, and who's doing it, and who they're doing it for. It's not a checklist. You need to think harder and add those bits. That's what we mean by just a framework and a method. Once you've added your bits, you have a Scrum-based method based on the Scrum framework. So Scrum is really well defined. What about Kanban? Well, Kanban is something you introduce to evolve an existing process, said David J. Anderson, inventor of the Kanban method. So that's different. Scrum was for delivering, sustaining complex products. So it's a product development framework. Kanban is something you introduce to an existing process to improve it using evolution. Kanban is a method for defining, managing, and improving services that deliver knowledge work. Again, improving is really important. Yes, we define it. Yes, we manage the work, but we improve the service, and it's all for knowledge work. So it's specifically for knowledge work. Please don't use the Kanban method for manufacturing. Not good there. Doesn't need to be there. There's that whole lean manufacturing model using Kanban systems. Absolutely, knock yourself out with that. But the Kanban method is for knowledge work. If you prefer your Scrum.org version of Kanban Guide for Scrum Team, says it's a strategy for optimizing a strategy for optimizing the flow of value through a process that uses visual, work in progress, limited pull system. Again, optimizing the flow of value. That means improving, getting it better so we get more flow of value. We want to deliver more value. I always think of it like a bottle of ketchup. I did a talk a few years ago, flow like ketchup. But we're trying to get the work is the ketchup stuck in a glass bottle. The system of work is the glass bottle. And what we're trying to do is get the ketchup out of the bottle onto a plate where I can put my chips in it. Because there's no value to me of having ketchup in the bottle. I can't get ketchup on my chips if it's still in the bottle. That would be wrong. You can't dunk your chips inside the bottle. You've got to put it on the plate. Then you can dunk your chips into it. That's when I get the value. We want to optimize the flow of value through and out of the Kanban system. That's what we're saying. So Scrum's for delivery, Kanban's for improvement. They're not alternatives at all, are they? Scrum tells you how to deliver complex products and says you should improve. Kanban assumes you're delivering service already and tells you how to improve. It's almost like you could put those two things together and get something really useful out of the pair. Because Scrum tells you how to play the game, but Kanban tells you how to improve your game, whatever the game you're playing is. It might be Scrum you're playing, but Kanban will tell you how to improve whatever game you are playing, whether it's rugby, hockey, football, software development, whatever the thing you're doing, it'll help you do it better as long as it's in knowledge work. Kanban is the alternative path to agility. It sounds like a marketing slogan because it was one. But the point is, while Kanban isn't part of Agile and its specifics, if you're using Kanban and therefore you're focusing on looking to improve the way you deliver your service, you are likely to use some of these wonderful Agile techniques that exist, therefore become more Agile. You may even want to replenish and deliver more frequently than you currently do, and thus become even more Agile. You start using Kanban, you should get these kind of benefits. Limiting WIP. That means each thing is in our system for less time and you have less things in your system, which means that you have higher optionality when it comes to selecting work. You're committing to the work later. Weird things happen in the world. For those that aren't in the UK, last summer, KFC ran out of chicken. They changed suppliers and KFC are out of chicken. Can you imagine anything more important in the world if you're a McDonald's marketing team right then? The things you were working on didn't matter anymore. KFC's run out of chicken. We need to tell the world we do chicken right now because everyone's talking about fast food chicken and nobody can get any. They can come to us and get it. So high optionality. Optionality has value. That gives us agility. Faster delivery of work items. So we talk about lead time, the amount of time between you commit to doing something and that thing is in the customer's hands. If we shorten the lead time, here's the trick. It takes less effort to do the work. In knowledge work, when the lead time is shorter, it takes less effort. I'm not saying small things finish faster. I'm saying the same thing done over two different ways. One's longer than the other. The one that's shorter will take less effort to do. Let me give you an example. Everyone must have done a performance review document at some point in their life. There's not many on video, but you with me? You done a performance review document? Now, you're either a type A or a type B, give or take, loosely. Type A's, I'm going to give myself an hour a day because I'm busy. I'll not get it done end to end. I've got an hour on Monday, an hour on Tuesday, an hour on Wednesday, an hour on Thursday. Awesome. I should get it done in 4 hours, shouldn't I? Fantastic. Type B's. It's due when? I'm going to go and do it now and do it end to end. If you are a type B, if you wouldn't mind throwing in chat, where do you do that document? I need to open the chat window. My chat window is hiding from me. I don't understand that. I can't find my chat window. Zoom's horrible when it wasn't wanted. There it is. It's hiding behind the PowerPoint. 4:30 in the morning. Yes, that's probably right. No, I mean by where? Literally, do you do it at your desk? Or do you, I don't know, hide in the office? You know, take a laptop and hide somewhere else where people can find you, or work from home. I mean, at the minute everyone is, but you know what I mean? Very few people would answer that when they have a last minute thing they just need to get done, they do it at their desk. It tends to be those that are stuck with a fixed desktop computer and that's it. Because your desk isn't where you get work done, your desk is where you get interrupted. It's where people know where to find you. And we know that getting interrupted when we have something we need to get done is a bad thing. It's almost like we want to limit WIP when things are last minute and we need to get things done quickly. Distractions are bad. Anyhow, so you're either type A or type B. Now, the weird thing is people who are type B often tell me that they wish they were a type A and they feel a bit guilty. Now, let me tell you what type A is like. It's Monday. I'm going to do my performance review document hour. Okay, I'm going to find the template. Okay, and I'm going to start typing some stuff. Oh, I've been interrupted. Okay, it's finished. Hour's done. On we go. Other things happen. You go home, you come back to work, you have lunch. Oh, it's Tuesday. I'm going to do some more performance review. First thing I've got to do, got to find it, haven't I? Got to find and open that document. Now, that might take you 10 seconds, might take you a minute. Times that by the number of people in your organization and how often they do a performance review document. See how many people you're employing just to find and open performance review documents. Just saying. But that's the transaction cost of the document. It's finding it and opening it. Then what do you do? Anybody want to answer? Out loud on the mic works for me. Or type it in.
Remind myself where I was.
Yeah. So you got to work out where you were. How do you do that? You read what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
To get yourself back in that mindset of performance. So I have to read what I did yesterday. And are you a different human today than you were yesterday? Yeah. So you have to rewrite it, right? You have to refactor it, as our software engineers might say, but we have to make it better. So we make it better. And then with the last 15 minutes we've got left, we start adding some more. And we do the next day, we read it again, we refactor it again, and we do a bit more. And then Thursday we do the same thing. And it turns out on Friday we have to do it again because we still haven't finished. There's a reason I've not written that book, because if I did write that book, I know it would go like the others I've tried. I've got some really good chapter ones, but every time I get back to writing some more book, I have to reread and rewrite chapter one and then start chapter. I've never finished chapter two. Apparently, to write a book, you have to be able to fire and forget and then come back and edit at the end. I'm just not the right type. But that's how most people work on type A. So the right way to do it is actually type C, which is type B with a modification. You do it a day sooner than you were going to. And then you go home and you sleep on it and you come back in and the next morning you open it, reread it and refactor it once. Then you close it. That way you've had the distance, the sleeping on it, the quality improvements and all that's happened, but you only do it once. The same work item over a shorter lead time takes less effort in knowledge work. Then factor it by a collaborative team. Oh, I need Fred to help me. Oh, Fred's busy talking to Jim over there. Oh, Jim's working on this now. Oh, man. And it just takes forever. The implicit prioritizations build up till you can't get things done. It takes more time and you have to keep task switching longer. The lead time increases. As the lead time increases, the effort increases and you get less stuff done. So Kanban reduces your lead time and you get more work done because you get more stuff done because it takes less time to do each thing and it's done to a higher quality because you get to do focus. You know, the Scrum value focus, that matters. Customer focus is a principle of Kanban. We focus on the customer end to end, not getting stuff to our done. We focus on getting things done for the customer, for what they think's done. We actually start with understanding their expectations of our service. Imagine a pizza delivery service. You're going to phone for pizza and they're going to deliver it. You might think, oh, I need it in 40 minutes. It needs to be hot and right toppings, right things, good quality ingredients. You know, that's your fitness for purpose criteria for pizza, right? What happens if you said you need it in 45 minutes, but the pizza company thinks fit for purpose is 1 hour? They deliver you a pizza within an hour, think, wow, we did awesome. And you think, I'm never going to them again. They were 15 minutes late. And nobody even talks to each other about it. Which is commonly what happens in those situations because no one's got a good understanding of service level expectation, either internal or external, and alignment on it and fitness for purpose. Kanban will help with those things. Inspect and adapt. Well, now we can inspect and adapt because we have some obvious things to inspect, like real metrics. Scrum does not have any metrics. There aren't any in the Scrum guide. I've checked. You might care about velocity as a concept, but it is not a metric anyway. Velocity as like the number of story points you guessed something would need at the start of a complex piece of work. Remember, Scrum's for complex. Complex means non-deterministic. That means you can't know before you've done it how long it's going to take you to do it, by definition. It means you're guessing. And heuristically, 20% accurate in your guesses. By the way, your customers also have some flexibility in their understanding of how long things will take. Unfortunately, they're thinking 85 to 90% accurate. The difference between that 85% and the 20% you're being is the 65% of pain you're feeling whenever you don't quite deliver on time. Because you're trying to tell them how long it's going to take to do something you've never done before. Part of the definition of complex. If you've done it before, it can't be complex. It's just complicated then. So yeah, we're trying to guess that and then say how many of those we're going to get done in a sprint. Neither of those two things are immutable, therefore they're not numbers. Numbers are always immutable. 2 plus 3 equals 5. So does 8 minus 3 and 20 divided by 4. And there aren't different 5s, they're all 5, and it's the same 1 5 used multiple times. 5 is a number, it is immutable, there is only one of them in the universe. Story points aren't like that. Some of your 5s are bigger than others, some of your 3s are bigger than 5s, some of your 8s are smaller than 5s. That's how story points go because they're guesses. They're a useful tool to help you do some planning and some thinking about things just before you start them, but they're not a useful tool as a metric. Kanban will give you metrics. You'll have lead time, you'll have delivery rate, you'll have WIP. These are things that actually matter, that aren't opinion-based, they aren't flexible, they actually happened, they're undeniable, and they're immutable. Oh, I'm feeling a bit ranty. Elmo says, I need to move on. Elmo, enough, let's move on. Have you not come across that one? Okay, only me. You can also get validated learning because you've got these metrics too. Right, they're not of the same genus, quote Mr. Anderson again. Scrum is a framework for delivery. Scrum is a team framework to deliver a product. Kanban is a service delivery improvement method. One's for delivery, one's for improvement. You can apply Kanban to an instance of Scrum. In fact, it's a damn good idea. They work well together. In fact, you're probably at least halfway there with your Kanban by doing Scrum. So how would I do it? Well, we need empirical improvement. So empirical process, right? Learning by doing. That means we need to do all of the things we talk about in Scrum: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Absolutely, the pillars of empiricism. But it also means we need to measure. Because otherwise we've got empirical, it felt like, rather than empirical learning. You need to actually measure and validate that things went the way you went. Scientific method means you actually have a hypothesis, design an experiment to test your hypothesis, design the measure to test that experiment, then you run the experiment and do the measures and see what happened. That's how we actually start being rational. Science causes us to be rational because humans aren't rational. It brings measures and forecasting. So when people ask for an estimate, they usually actually mean, can you give me a forecast of when this will be done? Or how much will be done by a date? Yeah, we can do that. Just don't use velocity. It's not going to be helpful. Guesses don't help here. You should always use probabilistic forecasting. A great quote on this one: never trust a solitary number. That's Hans Rosling from Factfulness. If someone's giving you a forecast and they're only giving you one number of the date it's going to be ready, don't trust it. They don't believe it either. It should always be a date range and a probability of lying within that range. Now you've got a forecast. When you ask the weather person, the weather forecaster, is it going to rain tomorrow? They don't say yes or no. They tell you the probability. It's almost like there's a 20% chance of rain between 9 and 10. That's what we've actually got used to. That's forecasting. If they're just giving you a single number, good luck. Take a brolly with you. So we can have more collaboration by just doing some simple measures and start being a bit more empirical. It enables empiricism, which is what Scrum's trying to do anyway. So we need a better word for than Kanban on top of Scrum teams. Let's do a Twitter burst, sort of, or a chat burst. Don't hit enter till I say go, but right now, could you type in the portmanteau of putting together Scrum and Kanban like Jedward? Is everyone typing? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I've seen one right answer so far. Obviously it's Canrum, isn't it? Okay, you're all thinking of ScrumBan, surely. Health warning time. The problem with ScrumBan. What the hell, ScrumBan? Who defines that? Who knows, right? It's a book. There's a good book based on a blog about a team that was doing Scrum that adopted Kanban on top of it. They tell you about a wonderful Kanban with Scrum implementation. But then somebody didn't bother reading the book, read the title and went, oh, let's use half of Scrum with half of Kanban and call that a thing. And they made another book and sold some copies and made some money out of that. But what is it? What is it really? Who decides? It's anything I choose, and that's what most people think ScrumBan is. The bits of Scrum we can do here without causing change, and the bits of Kanban that aren't too hard. I hate to be horrible about it, but that's what people see when they see ScrumBan. I don't have to change anymore. Please, can you come in and transform our organization, but for God's sake, no change, please. We're British. That's pretty much what most leaders are thinking with Scrum and with Kanban as they come in. Well, guess what? Transformation means change. Don't look at me strange. So I can't repeat what these other coaches be saying. That's a really bad Public Enemy quote from Harder Than You Think. I use Harder Than You Think as the theme tune of my Kanban class on the basis of, with Scrum, you can look at the Scrum Guide and you've got the answer. You want to do Professional Scrum Master Level 1? Awesome. Read the Scrum Guide, lots. That'll really help you in your journey. I advise it as a professional Scrum trainer. Read the Scrum Guide lots before you do PSM1. You'll do well if you do. Kanban isn't like that. There isn't a book of answers. There's a book of how to make what you're doing more visible and understand what's going on a bit better. But what's going on is what's going on in your service that you know better than any of us. So you've got to think about it. You've got to understand what's going on to make it better. Kanban is just a mirror of your service and saying, hey, look in the mirror, you decide what's important. Do you need a haircut? Do you need a shave? Do you need a wash? What's that bit of pen on your face that someone drew while you're asleep? It tells you what's going on, but it doesn't fix the problem. And if you take a Sharpie and adjust the image in the mirror, no one else is going to see it. You've now got a nice image in the mirror, but actually you don't look any different. You've got to change the service and then update the mirror, which is the Kanban board, the visualization. So ScrumBan, I think, kind of misses the point. If you're using Scrum and XP, you don't call X Scrum P, do you? You use Scrum and you use XP. Duh. It's fine. Scrum's a framework. It's designed to have stuff bolted on. If you want to take your Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost and stick on a rig roof and a roof rack and a nice, what's it called, roof box, knock yourself out. You're allowed to do that. If you want to make it a 2-door, great, fantastic. You want to make it 6 doors and have a 3rd row of seats, you can do that. Build on the framework. Scrum can cope. If you're doing Scrum with C++, is that ++ rum? I don't know how you say that. It's easy to type though. The point is, if you're doing Scrum, you're doing Scrum. If you're doing Kanban, you're doing Kanban. If you're doing XP, you're doing XP. These are great. They are complementary to each other. You don't have to munge them. If you're doing half of Scrum, you're not doing Scrum. That's what the end note in the Scrum Guide says. And I'm here to tell you, if you think you're doing Kanban, but you're not limiting WIP, and you don't have a pull system, what you're doing is called visual management. And it's a great first step. Welcome to the party. I've got 2 really good ideas that are going to help you do something really useful. The first thing is limit your WIP, and the second thing is make it a pull system. Now we're doing Kanban. Now we can get better. Now we're in control. We need to do that. Because if you're missing half a Scrum, you're missing half the point. And if you're missing half a Kanban, you're missing half the point. These are 2 very light work. One's a light work method, one's a light work framework. They work well together. Please don't nick bits of them. Scrum without the... I went through a phase where I didn't like the idea of Scrum, but I was, Scrum butophobics and all that. Scrumdamentalists is the word Hakan Force came up with. I like Scrumdamentalists. But actually, it's so light that you can't take the bits away. It just doesn't work. If you take the bits away, it stops the change happening. And if it stops the change happening, what was the point of doing Scrum in the first place? Scrum is meant to be about making change, make the change visible, empirical process. It's meant to cause change. If it isn't, we're probably not doing it right. So we need good metrics. Lead time's a good metric. There's another quote I have on my monitor. I've got a load of sticky notes on the bottom of my monitor, like this one. You can't read it. It says, tell me what you measure and I'll tell you how I behave. Imagine you're a striker at a top-level football team. You're through on goal, but you're at a really narrow angle. You've got a low percentage chance of scoring the goal because it's a narrow angle and the keeper's right there. Or you could pass it to your teammate and they've got an easy guaranteed goal, 90% chance of a goal for them, 10% chance of a goal for you. But you're on a goal bonus. If you score, you get 50 grand. If you pass it, you get an out, guaranteed. What are you going to do? What's the goal bonus for? The goal bonus is meant to help us score more goals so that we perform better as a team. But the outcome is actually I'm less likely to pass the ball, which is more like the team would score in that situation. I'm more likely to take the shot on goal. Understand what the metrics lead to. If you start making velocity, which is often used as if it's a measure, visible, and there are 2 teams and there's a manager and they're looking at one team doing 50 velocity and another team doing 80 velocity. They're either enlightened, in which case they're thinking, why aren't they doing 80 but not saying it? Or they're not enlightened and therefore they're saying, why aren't you doing 80? They are. And of course, they take that to the team. What does the team do in the next estimation session? Doubles the estimates. Now we're doing 100 and they're only doing 80. Look at us. Do you think the manager doesn't know they just got played? Of course they do. Does the team not know they just got played by the manager? Of course they do. What does that do to the trust? What does that do to delivery? So of course that's a bad thing. Bad things happen if you start making velocity visible like it's metric. Typically, we end up gaming it and dropping trust. Bad things happen. What happens about lead time? If I show lead time and say better is shorter, what happens to the team when they say, well, we want to make the lead time shorter? What can they do to game the stats? Anybody?
They might reduce quality, cut corners.
All right. So if you don't make quality non-negotiable, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
First rule of Kanban, that isn't ever written down, is quality is non-negotiable. I can quote, it's a nasty quote I can use. I've heard people say, 0 bugs is too expensive. And my horrible answer to that, and it is horribly disrespectful, but I'm going to go with it so it's memorable, is show me your data, because you don't have any. I'll show you mine, and it shows the opposite. 0 bugs is the cheapest because bugs are expensive, man. The cheapest time to fix a bug is just before you write it, and the cost goes up exponentially from that moment. Great astronomical example was the Hubble Space Telescope. They put it in space because they'd cut corners on the timeline on developing the primary mirror. They'd introduced a bug on the mirror and nobody even tested it until it went in space. Pointed at the galaxy, the photograph came back fuzzy. The head of science for the Hubble project, who's given 21 years of his entire career towards this project, is in a worldwide press conference that's suddenly very popular, in tears, saying there is no usable science we can achieve with this instrument. Basically, I've just wasted my entire career. Everything I ever hoped to do and everything I've ever done since I got the job, gone. The cost of fixing that was actually, because light bends both ways, is to put a 5-element lens between the mirror and the cameras to bend the light back how it's meant to be. You lose a bit of the contrast by doing that, but we can live with it. It cost 2 space shuttle missions to correct the Hubble telescope. It cost more to fix that bug than it did to, well, just to give a nice example, design, build and launch the Hubble Space Telescope. It cost more to fix than it did to launch in the first place. The trust was truly astronomical. Oh, come with me, people. Anyway, but the point is, bugs get expensive. The quicker you fix it, the better. If you release poor quality, then that's what you're going to be known for, and you're going to see that in your big customer business anyway. So you want things to be better, faster, but quality is non-negotiable. So coming back to lead time, quality is non-negotiable. How can we game lead time? Well, if you know Kanban, you'll drop your WIP, because WIP and lead time are functions of each other. Little's law is true for all work done in the past, because all work that's done is no longer complex. Complex equals non-deterministic. You can't use a formula for the future in non-deterministic. That's what non-deterministic means. But you can in the past, because everything you've done is no longer complex, because we've done it now. A computer can run it. It's clear. It's obvious in old speak. So it's perfectly true in the past as Little's law, which is awesome. That means your lead time is a function of your WIP and your throughput. So if you reduce WIP, you'll decrease your lead time, which means it takes less time to do each thing, which means you get more things done. So by doing that gaming of the lead time, you make things better. Doing things smaller things have a smaller lead time. Good. That means we get faster feedback for less cost. Because we're in a complex domain, we need to change the mind of our customers, because we welcome change even late in the day. Because we're agilists, we know that actually scope doesn't creep, but understanding grows. We actually show our customers something in the complex adaptive world for them to change their mind about what they actually need. Because what they asked for isn't what they need. It's their current best understanding of what they need based on what they knew at the time. We need to give them more information so they can fail fast or learn fast. Because the opposite is learn slow, not succeed fast. It's either fail fast and learn, or fail slow and learn when it's really expensive. You want to know that a mirror is dodgy while it's still in the ground, not after it's gone into space. That's why we use lead time. Using lead time will typically lead to behaviors that improve, provided we hold quality to be sacrosanct. So you might want to measure your initial quality. That might be useful. Typically, we infect upstream and downstream. If you're that team in the middle, you're going to infect upstream and downstream. And now we're getting closer to the end-to-end customer service. If you're a customer of, I don't know, a company named after a rainforest for delivering stuff to your house, everything from A to Z, you don't care if their picking and packing is 5 minutes faster or not, if you're a customer. What you care is, do I get my package tomorrow? Or is it going to be the next day? Tomorrow's what I want. I care about the end-to-end service between, I've browsed on it, I've selected it, I've paid for it, they've picked and packed, it's in my hand. I have a brown box in my hand, I'm happy. That's the bit I care about, the end-to-end service. I don't care about that bit. I don't care about optimizing that bit. I care about optimizing that bit end-to-end. And this is how we do it in Kanban. If you're that middle team, you infect upstream and downstream and get them to come play too. Because if you don't, what you're going to do is get better at delivery. And that's really going to annoy both sides of, because the ones before you, the upstream, won't be able to keep up. And the ones downstream won't be able to keep up either. No customers will have benefited from those actions. So we want to look right and left across the whole org because we want to get the end-to-end service. That's what Kanban's for. Kanban's about service delivery improvement, not my team improvement, service delivery improvement as the customer sees it. It's like Scrum when you only have a single team from soup to nuts, right? We care about the end result that the end customer cares about. That's what we want to get to. That's the holy grail, right, for a large organization. End to end's not 18 months, it's 2 days. No waiting in queues. That's what Kanban's for. So if you were in that situation, what if that's you? You're Scrum Team 2. You're waiting on Scrum Team 1, you've got non-Scrum teams and Scrum Team 1 after you and all those other things going on. And that's you. Make things better, Scrum Master. Knock yourselves out. Product owner, do what you can. Well, in Kanban board, you'd have to use a Kanban board. Let's use StarbanDans. StarbanDans is like this, right? You have a queue outside the shop, a queue inside the shop. They're definitely getting served. I've committed to them. If they made it inside the door, I'm going to take their order before I close. Then they order. Then they take payment, give me payment. Then we brew some coffee for them. Then we put the milk in there. Then we put a lid on it. Then we put a sleeve on the cup. And then we call out their name because he must not be named and always needs his coffee. And then they're done. That's StarbanDan's process. Yeah? What do we have? We have buffer lanes. All Kanban boards typically look like this, not those column headings. The fact that we got this list of options to the left called customer queue. Then we have a WIP limited selected area. It could be called ready or whatever. You could call it sprint backlog if you wanted, but this idea of stuff we've now committed to. And then you have activity, queue beyond, activity, queue beyond, activity, queue beyond. Repeat as many times as needed to last activity to done. The buffer lanes go side to side with the activity lanes, and the WIP limit at the top apply to both the activity and the queue beyond. So you can see there are 10 things in payment right now. We're only working on 2 of them, but 10 things are still in payment, and they're mine until someone takes them away from me, assuming that that's a handoff. By the way, Kanban doesn't assume that's a handoff. Kanban says, model your dominant knowledge discovery activities. That doesn't say handoff. That could be one person doing the end-to-end service. You've all been to little coffee shops where that's true, I'm sure. Some larger coffee shops might have 3 people working across that service. Or might be 2. The handoff's absolutely not implied by Kanban. Just the dominant knowledge discovery activities going on at that stage in the workflow. I'm using very precise language. Please excuse me. But yeah, the buffer lanes and the WIP limits cause the pull system. That's a Kanban board. If you don't have buffer lanes, you don't have those WIP limits, you probably don't have a pull system. So you've got a visual management board. And like I say, I've got 2 really good ideas to how to, welcome the party, you're doing a good thing. Visual management's awesome. Let's talk about pull systems. Let's talk about WIP limits because it's going to be even more awesomer. So this is you, right? You're Scrum Team 2. So this is how it would look in a Kanban board. Maybe what you're doing is the build. Someone else does discovery, And they also happen to do SIT and UAT because that's just what that team does. There's a non-Scrum team doing deployment because that's what they do, and another one doing pre-prod testing because that's special and someone else does that and you don't have rights. Then obviously deployment at the end is done by a non-Scrum team. They're the proper sysadmins, yeah? Does this look familiar? This kind of model? You know, I've seen this lots in the workplace, but that might then have some work in it. And if it's a Kanban system, awesome. It doesn't have that much work in it, but it's got a lot still. But the problem is, if you're using Scrum as that team, we're all about getting to the done increment, aren't we? So all we care about is getting our stuff to done. Oh, is that making the overall service end-to-end better, or is that just making us better? Is the customer getting the thing any faster? Who knows? Who's the most junior person in the organization who cares about that whole end-to-end flow? And you'll be so shocked at how many times the job title of that most junior person who cares about the end-to-end customer flow is the letter C, or starts with the letter C for chief, like chief operating officer or chief executive officer. Very common, because no one cares about the end-to-end flow. So if we're trying to get to done, we may be making a local sub-optimization that makes our world better, but screws everything up for everyone else. And no one would even know. So what we need to do is start thinking, instead of being like individual teams playing individual sports, to being like the Olympic team coming off the airplane there. And that's us there, that little red box. That's my little team. But the bit we want to get better is all of it. Right, you're all agile experts. Who's taken their brave pill? Who's going to unmute and tells me where the bottleneck is?
Looks like the stairs. The exit out of the plane.
No, that's the photographer in that instance. No, I'm on about on the board. On the board, where's the bottleneck? Which column? Which is the column that needs help right now?
I'll go for pre-prod testing.
Anyone think anything different?
I think deployment.
In deployment, because there are 4 in done and nothing doing.
Yeah.
So there are 4 sitting ready for SIT. But there are also 2 sitting in SIT test waiting for UAT and 3 sitting in UAT ready for pre-prod. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's like Zach said.
Testing.
Damn you, Zach. You spotted it straight away. It is. It's surprising how often we don't know that. Ask a group of 50 agile coaches and see how many people get the right answer. It's bizarre, right? Yet we often talk about Kanban. We need to be able to read this stuff. It's really important that we can see why is it the bottleneck? It's the bottleneck because we've got 3 things going on, which is at its whip limit. Nothing's coming beyond it. We've got starvation and deployment beyond it. We've got nothing in done waiting for deployment. Something's going on that's stopping stuff getting past that stage. If that was StarbanDan's, the bottleneck is always milk. Because everyone likes a different coffee, and they all have different temperatures and frothinesses of milk, and now we've got to factor in almond, soy, and everything else. Never mind skinny, whole, and all the other different. You've got loads of variety, and they all take time, and they're all individual. Whereas the espresso guy is just pressing the espresso button or pulling a lever. That's it. So we need to protect that bit and help them. If that is a handoff, we need to get involved with them because we don't need to improve our bit. Our bit was build, if you remember. Nothing's going to happen if we take more work in from discovery. There's more work available for us. We could take another ticket right now, apart from our whip limit, which is stuck on deployment, which is stuck on SIT, which is stuck on UAT, which is stuck on pre-prod. We should be making sure anything we do next is helping pre-prod because the bit we want to get better is all of it because that's what the customer cares about. We need to fix that bit. One team. Even though we're not. But we need to act like one. How many departments in your organization is that? Tricky questions, right? Evolution means change. Don't look at me strange. This isn't easy to do. It's hard to do when you think about Kanban end to end. So we start with the bit we can do, our bit, and infect upstream and downstream. Start measuring. Know when things are getting better. Talk to people. Make it visible. Help them learn too. That's how we do Kanban. Eventually, we touch the sides. Now the customer's happy. All we need to do is see where we're screwing up all the other services that are interdependent on that shared service team in the middle. At least one shared service team in every large organization is the dependency of every other team. If you don't know who that is off the top of your head, here's a clue. It's your team. Because everyone else knows who it is. It's your team. It always is, right? If you don't know who it is, it's you. You're in the middle of this service and probably every other one too. So you need to be able to help people prioritize. What happens if you're in this situation and the team doing build prioritizes the work so that item 1 is the most important, but the people doing development think item number 2 is the most important? When it comes to their area, they reprioritize it. And instead of limiting our WIP, we're now making everything the top priority. So in other words, nothing's the top priority. So in other words, we increase the WIP and everything takes longer to do. So we need to start talking left and right. Not easy, but it's actually not that hard. If you put somebody in charge of that end-to-end service, things will get better. If you've got all these project managers knocking around the organization and now you've got Scrum Masters and product owners and they don't know what to do, trust me, they've got the skills to influence this. Just don't let them tell everyone what to do. Manage the work, not the people. Bang, off we go. They know who to talk to. So I've talked about this as if you're doing Scrum and you want to add Kanban. Start adding measures, limit your WIP, make everything visible, understand what's going on. Off you go. It's fairly well understood, I think, now. Add Scrum to Kanban. Why would you do that? Well, it helps you with a bit of structure. It's simple, right? Back to basics. There are only 5 events, 3 roles, and 3 artifacts in Scrum. That's not hard to do. If you can do 11 things, you're doing Scrum. Just can't be 10. It's got to be 11. So maybe having those roles is good. Maybe if you're doing Kanban, therefore you're getting more things finished because your throughput goes up, your delivery rate goes up. Maybe having someone called a product owner who makes sure that everything we start actually has a lot of value will mean that not only are we increasing our output, we're increasing our outcome, because every piece of output delivers more outcome. So having that role seems like a good idea to me. Having somebody who helps oil the system for everyone else, someone who can facilitate. Facilitate means make easy. Who can facilitate getting stuff done. That might be a useful job. Having people focused on doing the work actually allowed and accountable for making the decisions about how we do the work. Rocket science again. So why wouldn't we do that? It makes it simple, everyone can understand it. There's a 17-page document that tells you exactly how to do it. And it's free and available to all and translated into lots of languages. If you're not doing delivery and you want to do Kanban, how do you start with what you do now when you're not delivering anything? Well, maybe start with Scrum. I've done that in the past. That worked really well. If we can see it, we can improve it. If you can't see it, you can pretend it's not there and you don't have to change anything. That's why I said, don't start by writing policies because Kanban says explicit policies. You already have policies. Whose work do you prioritize? Could be HIPPO, highest paid person's opinion. That could be how you decide what goes first. It could be squeakiest wheel gets oiled. So the noisiest person. It could be mates rates, who I go and running club with every lunchtime. I look after my mates. I don't care what the policy is. All Kanban says is make it visible. And if you're embarrassed by it, improve it. Embarrassment-driven development works. But you already have the policy. You don't need to go look and make new ones. You already have it. You just haven't written it down. It gets you out of that, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't realize it was a 30-mile-an-hour limit here conversation to, of course it's 30, I can see it's 30. I've decided not to go 30 for this reason. I've decided to actively break the rule to see if it makes things better or for this other reason. But it's that idea of it's explicit so everyone knows and you don't accidentally break a rule that you didn't even know was there. Limiting WIP shifts us from focusing on work to delivering value. I hate tasks. I love staying at the user story level if you're using stories, because stories are units of value and we want to deliver a lot to that. Tasks are units of work and we don't want to do much of that. Remember, simplicity, the art of maximizing the work not done. We don't want to do tasks. We want to do value delivery. So stay in the unit, smallest unit of value. That was my hour notification. And I'm on conclusions. I'll take that. WIP limits bring the pain forward. I think of WIP limits like a corset. A corset is an article of clothing for both men and women. And it moves the stuff from where it naturally accumulates to where you'd prefer to have it. However, if I'm a politician and I want to move my belly around my back, if I'm wearing a corset and there's no discomfort, it's not doing anything for me. In order for a corset to do its job, it must cause discomfort. That's what WIP limits do. And what if something blocks in a column and it's still within WIP? Well, that's like sticking an apple inside your corset. That hurts, right? You want to do something as a team to work out, or as a group of people. How do we not stick an apple in there again? Because that hurts. So we let it hurt enough to cause us to change something so we don't do it again. That's what WIP limits do. They move stuff from where it naturally accumulates to where we'd rather have it. So away from milk to before the coffee. So we don't have lots of cups with a little bit of espresso getting cold in it, waiting for milk. We want the cup sitting empty, waiting for coffee. So we use WIP limits to do that. Real metrics make things better. They need to be irrefutable. You know, two people can't measure the same thing and come up with a different answer. It took that amount of time elapsed between that starting and that finishing. That is irrefutable. Between commitment and done took 7 days. That happened. We've got a tool that can pull the data out and everything. But be careful what you show. Don't show it unless you know what change you're trying to drive, because you might drive a change you don't intend. Tell me what you measure and I'll tell you how I'll behave. Professional Scrum with Kanban is a class offered by Scrum.org, and there are various professional Scrum trainers in the community who offer this class. Me. I'm not trying to do a sales pitch, but there are classes. There's a reason I got into Scrum.org. I'm a Kanban University trainer. I maintain that. I still am. Taught a Kanban University class today. They're very good. There's a reason I became a Scrum trainer as well, because I like the idea of using Scrum and Kanban together. So having a class about professional Scrum with Kanban is an awesome idea. And that's what that class is. It is not for people who don't know Scrum, though. You've got to be good at the professional Scrum bit before you come to that class. Otherwise, you may struggle a bit. It assumes you already know about Scrum quite a lot to a professional level, rather than the general everyday everyone knows about Scrum level. Or come to a Kanban University class. Kanban system design will shockingly help you learn how Kanban works and then how to apply Kanban and come up with a Kanban system design for what you do. And Kanban systems improvement will help you improve that. Right, I'm done. Always have a slide at the end that stops you falling off the end of the deck and showing that little message. That's what I do anyway. I guess now is a good time for questions, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing StarbanDan. Now, no, I like it. Okay. As usual, I have my question, but I want to not to go first. So please, any more question? Any question? Want to break the ice?
I should stop looking at the chat.
Yeah. You can unmute if you want, or you can type in the chat.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Please, Candice.
So I've just been tasked to go through metrics and kind of design new metrics. So I've had a look at them and I've decided on flow metrics, looking at cycle time and how with the flows and moving through the system. But I know my company
You're having a lot of trouble hearing you.
I think, Corrado, you have to go on mute.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Hello?
Sorry. Candice, can you try again? Sorry, I couldn't hear. There was a digital delay going on.
So it's really around a question around metrics. And so I've been tasked to design a new board, metrics board. So I've looked at, the kind of flow metrics and cycle times and lead times and stuff. But my company's very much on velocity, story points, using that to talk to stakeholders, using that as forecasting tools. How do I change the conversation, so they can, so I've kind of done it in a sense of, a burn down chart's good, but if you add the aging chart, you can actually see why, things are not moving, or where we're taking too long, and then you can direct the conversation, and your metrics then become more meaningful rather than, but how would you?
So, yeah, so I often point at two people when I'm talking metrics. A guy called Troy McGinnis, his name sounds like tennis. He's awesome. He's where I got most of my maths from. I love him to bits. And Dan Vicanti, awesome guy. They were both around at the very beginning of Kanban. There are other people as well. I know other people. I think Luca's writing a book at the moment on metrics as well. But Dan's book has a really useful title: Actionable Agile Metrics. That's the thing.
So we used to use Actionable Agile. We used to use Actionable Agile. We used to use Jira. We've just now moved to Azure DevOps.
Ooh.
And we've got rid of Actionable Agile now. So I've been tasked to come up with a new dashboard. So I've kind of chosen Actionable Agile again, but I know they're not keen, or Flowviz, because you get that same sort of information.
I don't want to talk too much on tools. I was pointing his book to start with, but because the problem with Azure DevOps and Jira is that they also do Kanban, only they don't really. They don't really. Yeah. What they do is they show a way of doing visual management with limited WIP, but God help you if you have a flow that has different work items with different workflows. So work item type 1 has this workflow, work item type 2 has this workflow, but it's all on the same Kanban board.
Yeah.
Or if you need to collaborate and have more than one person assigned to a ticket, or have some way of stopping it, assigning one person to more than one ticket, because hey, if you've got an avatar, you should have the same number of avatars as you have brains, because you're doing knowledge work. So one avatar each, because you've got one brain each. And that one thing you're working on is the thing you're working on now. But then it's not, it's up to date all the time, because there are 23 hours and 45 minutes in the day to update your Kanban board, and 15 minutes a day where you leave it alone because no one's doing anything. They're in the Kanban meeting or the daily Scrum or the stand-up or whatever you're calling that session. So yeah, part of this is linked to the fact that tool is not a Kanban tool. It is a tool that also tries to do Kanban, and it is not very good at doing descriptive. I'm sorry, because 90% of the users out there are on ADO or on Jira, and that's just the reality you're in. The good news is Kanban has an answer, which is principle number 1. Start with what you do now and agree to continuous improvement. There's principle number 2. So you can take that and say, that's the tool you've got, and that's what you have to use. Okay, how do you make the best of it? In terms of what can you do with the data and the metrics, well, you can start explaining how velocity isn't a metric, because, sorry, I'm second time through on this today because I did a class earlier, so I'm trying not to repeat myself, even though I know I've said it earlier today. I'm trying to say it.
It's okay, I wasn't in your class today, so repeat yourself. That's
fine. So, remember when you learned the very first bit of maths ever, and you learned arithmetic, which is how to add two numbers together? Do you remember the rules about arithmetic? I bet they didn't even tell you, because you were probably out 3 or 4. To add two things together, the things must be numbers. Even if you do an algebra, the letters represent a number. You just don't know what the number is yet, but it's a number. Numbers also have rules. Numbers are immutable. 5 is always 5, whether it was 3 plus 2 or 8 minus 3 or 20 divided by 5. I know I said that earlier. Numbers are immutable. So you can't add those things together and come up with something that makes sense. The other thing that we don't do properly when we're talking velocity is we don't understand tolerances. It's easy to add the MIG number together, but it's the old thing of how do you measure the weight of an elephant using your bathroom scales? Well, you hope the elephant's dead, because the first thing you need is a chainsaw. Because the bathroom scales will only weigh up to about 20 stone effectively. So you need to cut them up into small chunks, weigh all of the different bits and add it together, yeah? And now you've got the weight of the elephant? Wrong, because every single measurement had a tolerance. And there are formulas you need to use to add those tolerances together. So you'll get a weight of, 250 stone plus or minus 30 stone. Off you go. That makes sense. But if you don't add the tolerances for each measurement, you're being deceptively accurate. You're more accurate than you actually are being. You can't be that accurate with that tool. Estimation in the complex domain is roughly 20% accurate. That means it's going to take me 5 days, plus or minus 4 days. Add those tolerances together using the formula, and you'll end up with the big thing saying it's going to take us 200 days, plus or minus 180 days. What is the use of that? The problem is the formula to add tolerances together involves sigma symbols and all sorts of clever bits of maths that you have to actually know maths to use, certainly beyond what I would choose to do. But it's easy to add the other numbers together and forget about that bit, right? So that's what we do. And we're being deceptively inaccurate. We are literally lying to our customers, saying it's going to take you this amount of time, when you don't know that. In fact, you know it's probably not true. But there's customers like being lied to, because human beings, when faced with an uncertain future, will take certainty over value. Mental, but absolutely true. It's about thinking fast and slow, all those cognitive biases. That's why we love a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart comes up with a date and a cost and all those other things. Do you know what who Gantt was and what he did that for? Gantt charts, he was a World War I officer in charge of moving shells for artillery. And he used Gantt charts to track which artillery guns would need which shells when. Would you be shocked that the military don't use that anymore? What the hell's that got to do with an IT project? But it comes and looks nice and it makes us feel better about an uncertain future. And in the complex world, because it's non-deterministic, we have an uncertain future. You either embrace the uncertainty and take some truth, or you take a convenient lie. And that's the truth. So how does that help? How can I make this actionable? What you do is you do the thing they've asked you to do. And then on the side, you start measuring your lead time as well and your throughput. And maybe you do a bit of forecasting based on just some simple lines of probabilistic uncertainty, so a cone of uncertainty. So you can talk about date and line between them. If you're really lucky, you've still got a bit of access to actionable agile, and it'll give you some Monte Carlo simulation. And you can come up with some real good metrics. And you give them the nice to have, and then you put it on one side. By the way, we can forecast like this, and this tells us this, and give them something actionable. This is what's going to happen. This is how likely it is to happen. What would you like to do about it? And if they don't prefer the actionable one, well, you can't lead a horse to water and make it drink. You can just point out, here's the water. Understand what they're using the metrics for. Understand why they're using the metrics. If they just want to feel good, they're going to feel good.
Yeah, I think we want to feel good. Yeah, no, it was helpful.
It was a bit ranty.
I think I will run the two together.
Elmo says I need to move on from that.
Thank
Elmo
you.
says hi.
Hi, Elmo.
Enough. Let's move on. Corrado, you had a mic closed incident. You're on mute.
Yeah, I am, but I think I have some problem. So any more questions, please?
No, just one thing. Dan, thanks very much for the presentation. I think it was fantastic. I've been in user experience and information architecture for 20 years. I just came out of an enterprise software company. And it's just relating to that. It's you have to be able to differentiate those things. You have to be able to measure those things. They always use velocity all the time. They had 21 Scrum teams, and I had 6 designers, and they kept talking about working at velocity. So to your point around it being a team effort, I just wanted to echo that sentiment. And you can't take it all on. I took it all on and tried to get alignment between product management and engineers, and it's an exhausting effort. So, to Candace's point around how to do it, I don't think there is any one absolutely irrefutable approach. And if you don't get people on board, you can't, right? It's a process. Unless I'm misunderstanding something in your experience and from your presentation, it's mind numbing. It's baffling. Like, it's not even my company, and I was just trying so hard to get people to come together. So velocity is a waste of time. I totally agree. If you can't measure it, then what's the point? Anyway.
I'm going to tell you, it's not a waste of time entirely. It's a really useful tool to help you know how much planning to do. In Scrum, how much of my product backlog should I refine ready for sprint planning? Well, we roughly do 20 points a sprint. Okay. Having 30 or 40 points worth of refined stuff before we go in probably means we'll have good enough stuff to pick from. It's really useful for that. Even just having the process of estimation at the front, I find super valuable, because we're going to share tacit knowledge between us at the point before we've done any work. So it's really cheap, actually, to have a conversation about what you know about a thing, what I know about a thing, and then use a tool like Planning Poker, which causes conflict, because I say 3 and you say 13, and now we have to explain to each other in front of everybody, which increases everyone's knowledge just before we do that thing. That's valuable. It's just the estimate you get at the end of it's pointless. In fact, sometimes harmful. The process
Oh,
of
brilliant.
estimation is valuable, estimates aren't.
Yeah, brilliant. Anyway, thank you. Not so much a question, but just it really reinforced and helped me understand how to move forward accordingly. So thank you. Cheers.
You're quite right. There's no single answer. It depends on the context and the people and everything. Remember though, there's the very first episode of the Mitchell and Webb look. There's an old comedy show from the UK, David Mitchell, and they're dressed as SS soldiers. And he says, have you noticed our badge caps, their skulls? And it goes on for a bit. And he says, do you think we're the baddies? And of course, looking back in history, of course they're the baddies, they're the SS.
Sure.
But actually, do you think the people who put that uniform on thought that at the time? Of course they didn't. Everyone's the hero in their story. Everyone's trying to make things better. Even that idiot at work, the one that's the bane of your life, everybody has a different one of them. They're trying to do things to make things better. They think they're the hero and you're the nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've been everybody's nightmare. It's okay. It's all right. But to your point, everyone's well-intended, but it's about getting people together and getting on the same page. So
and making it visible so we can all see the impact of the decisions we all make.
And make it explicit.
Around that, then that's where we get good things. Because people are good. They just have to let go of some things and agree to this continuous improvement thing. It's agreeing to let go of some of the things we care about so that we can actually all get better together, because that's what the customer's going to get better. And that's hard. It's hard people stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Cheers.
And thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any more questions? Okay, I think I can go with my question.
Go for it.
Dan, just a quick clue. If you have a situation like the one that you have described, when you have different teams working on the same Kanban, okay? Now let's assume that these teams are working for different divisions, okay? So you have division for deployment and another for development, okay? How you can optimize the whole Kanban when the division that are silos actually have their own interests? How can engage in the whole process to make an optimization at all level instead of doing, I don't know, sub-optimization, reducing cycle time for some stages or what else? So
this is really hard stuff. So when you're thinking about this, I was trying to think there are two systems views of the world. Systems thinking. Sorry, you need to mute again. I'm getting a call, so everyone else is probably hearing it. But yeah. Corrado, if you could hit mute for us, that'd be awesome. Yeah. So systems thinking, we think end-to-end about the system, about the end of the whole service and the impact on the end-to-end service, or the systematic. So the systemic and the systematic. Systematic, we break it down to those small chunks and think about the bit we care about. Most large organizations are large, and therefore it's hard to think about the whole organization. So they break it down into departments, divisions, whatever you want to call it. And then they put somebody in charge. And they'll also tell you their meritocracies. The highest performing head of function, when the next job up becomes vacant, is the person who's likely to get that next job up. So not only do we have all of these people across multiple departments, the heads of each of these departments are in competition with each other to look good to get promoted, because it's a real pyramid scheme up there. The race to A is hard. There's a bulge technical competence in most organizations, and then there's a pyramid above it. I'm in competition with all of my peers to get promoted, but in order to serve the customer, I have to suspend my own interests in getting promoted to work effectively and make the people around me look good, which means I'm less likely to get promoted. That is the truth about how we have organized our organizations. So we'll have a head of here whose interests and motivations and also financial interests, because typically heavily bonus focused at that level, means I have different outcomes that I care about to the people over here and the people over here. And do you remember what those bonus and promotion schemes are meant to be for? There are motivation schemes. But if you know anything about Dan Pink, you know that financial incentive with cognitive work leads to a drop in performance, not an increase in performance. Yet we have, the more senior you are, the more the bonus matters, and the more the promotion is difficult and is more competitive against each other. But we have to work together at this level so the people below us can work together so our customer gets what they want. When you think of the world like that in a systematic view, mental, isn't it? Utterly bonkers. But this is how conventional thinking leads to companies being organized. If you're going to do Kanban and you're going to care about end-to-end service like a customer, the first people that need to be engaged are the senior leadership, because you are asking them to suspend their self-interest. You are asking them to give up the thing that makes them look good in competition with their peers, even though they might say nice things about their peers, that they are in competition with. And that's hard, because they're setting the goals for each division or department that everyone else is going to, and priorities. Because if the priority changes through each team to different items, it means everything is higher WIP and everything has longer lead time. Therefore, we get less stuff done. Therefore, the customer gets less. The bigger we get, the less we deliver. It's absolutely true. You see this time and time again. So what's the easy answer? There isn't one. Sorry. It's hard. You just got to make the problem visible. And this is where I defer to my honourable colleague, Lisa Atkins. It's just a different team. Take it to the team. Take it to that team of leaders and say, this is the problem we have. How do we solve this? When I was working at a large energy sector company, I did some work with a team that was deciding where to try to drill a hole in the ground and see if there was gas or oil or something. That was an exploration team, and they had their own self-interest. We did that 6 months faster than we normally would have. We saved, out of 9 months, we did it in 3 months. This means we can then drill the hole sooner, which means we can operate the platform sooner. Round heuristic, roughly 10 million a day for operating one of those platforms in terms of getting the money out. Cost of delay savings of 6 months on 10 million a day. Anybody? 1.9 billion in cost of delay savings. But the head of exploration doesn't see a penny, because that shows up in operations. Operations are the people who drill the oil out. In order for us to do well in exploration, I have to make that guy look good, who I'm in competition with for my job. And this is how we organize our companies to do things. Mental, isn't it? Now, that could be any organization in the world. It could be a bank, any large organization. We tend to just grow, and also it becomes territory wars. We want more people here because I need more people to manage, to show what a manager. All of those different things are going on, rather than thinking about how can we make things better for our customers? How can we be truly customer focused? And that's the trick. I would take it to the team. Get that team together and say, hey, here's a problem. What we're going to do about it? It's in their self-interest to do something about it if they want to be successful. And remember, the motivation for a CEO isn't to make their company better or bigger or any of those things. It's, for God's sake, not on my watch. This company's been going for a certain number of years here, and it's not going to be on my watch that we go bust with COVID or whatever else is going on. I remember working in a bank where they said, this bank has been in existence longer than the United Kingdom. The CEO does not want the bank to go bust on his watch. That's what he's thinking in that moment. Stewardship. Leave it in a slightly better place than I got it. Get out quick. Get out in a healthy place. Make the world slightly better. Move on. They're not trying to make the biggest, best and anything. No, that's what they thought until they got the job. Now they've just got the not on my watch fear. Survivability is the CEO driver. Who'd have thought, right? Oh, I think I've entered the world of wittering, so I'm going to do that at myself again.
I would say thank you for the response, but I cannot say that. Okay, any more questions?
Anyone else want to hear more ramblings?
Okay, Dan, thank you very much for this sharing. Just a quick question for me about logistics. Are you going to share the deck eventually?
I can do. Do you want me to?
Good.
There's a version of this on SlideShare. It's not quite the same. Happy to put this one on SlideShare or email it you or whatever.
Yeah. You can send to me and I will share with the communities. Perfect.
Can I do that tomorrow?
Okay. Yeah, take your time. Okay. Thank you very much all for joining and for resisting till the end. We arrived almost to 50 people, so good for this event. And again, thank you very much, Dan. I already see your presentation. That's why I'm asking to join our community, because it was great and I really love it. I really love it. A lot of insight and confirmation for me. I will use this later in my job. Thank you.
I wish more CEOs would come. Make my life a lot easier.
I hope this was good for you too. And again, see you next week for our events. Thank you again, Dane. Have a great evening to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thanks. Bye.
It's been rambly.
Thanks.